everyone. Happy Thursday, right? Well, it's a crazy week coming off of the Labor Day holiday. Feels like it's Wednesday, but I'm so glad to be here with all of you. And this is a topic that got lots of feedback as people were registering. They're like, yes, please. I feel like I am showing these buyers endlessly and they're not pulling the trigger. They're not making the decision. They're stuck waiting for rates to drop. How do I get them off the fence and under contract? So we're going to spend a few minutes on that today, but do me a favor, if you will, maybe just type in the chat box your name, where you're from, and maybe what is your biggest, most annoying challenge when it comes to working with your buyers right now in today's market. So love to hear from you, get some feedback there. So feel free to type that in. Thank you guys for typing in so I know you can hear me loud and clear. I just happened to be on a group session with a top team, and they were asking me, hello, Michelle, good to see you there. Tell Corinne I said hi. And they were asking me, Debbie, we know you started selling real estate at the age of 18. So you must have worked with a lot of buyers. And we were talking about that because, at the age of 18, pretty much my world was the first time home buyer. And as we all know, the first time home buyer sometimes can be a little bit difficult. They're scared. They may have scrappy credit, may not have the most money, right, to put down, and may have parents advising and, all the stuff, lots of emotion, high drama. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And since I started so young, I spent a lot of years working with that type of buyer, which I think helped me develop a little bit more skill around how to take them by the hand and move them forward. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. The good news though, if some of you are in that same position where you're working with a lot of first-time buyers, they become sellers, right? So a few years later, I had this tidal wave of great listings. So then it felt like it was really worth it. So we'll talk about some different scripts today. And often you guys will be like, oh, can I have that script? So I just had my team go ahead and pull our real estate scripts together for you in a little booklet. So if you want to very quickly grab your phone, go ahead and grab that QR code. So it's not anything that we're trying to sell you. This is 100% complimentary, free gift. So if I talk about a script today and you think you need it, it's probably in that script book. So that's for you, okay? So when we think about these buyers that are stuck, we know they would love to time the market perfectly, but who can do that, right? Nobody has a real estate crystal ball. And we also know that they get stuck. They get stuck in their fear and hesitation. In fact, years ago, I made up this affirmation. It's a little bit long, but kind of worked for me, so I'm going to throw it out there for you guys. My job as a great salesperson is to help them overcome their fear and hesitation to achieve their goal. See, before we go into the tactics of urgency, let's do a little mindset checkup here. I believe that many of you in your heart, you're just such good people, and you feel like, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be just driven by the dollar. I want to help people, and bless you for that. I mean, I believe in that. What we have to remember, though, is this is such an emotionally fraught thing to do, to buy, to sell. Even the most analytical person gets stuck in the fear and the emotion. Now, your own mama who loves you is not going to buy a house if she doesn't want to. So it's not a question of pushing people, because I don't want you to go into today's session thinking, oh, this is about pushing people in a gimmicky, salesy way into doing things. No, no, no. This is about being not just an order taker, but a true salesperson. Deep dive in that consultation, knowing what they need, what they want, what they can afford, and then taking them gently by the hand and moving them forward to achieve the goal. Now, one of the best ways to move them forward is to use the strategy of urgency. So, time, scarcity, social proof, stories of others you've recently helped and how powerful that was. Authority. So that could be a Wall Street Journal article. That could be, our Goldman Sachs team gives us market predictions. And then what are the negative outcome or consequence of that missed opportunity? So they got to see the whole picture, right? And that helps them break out of their fear. Now, when urgency is effectively created, it does instill a feeling that there's a limited window of opportunity or a pressing need to act quickly. So if I know that the buyer is financially capable and is reasonably motivated, but they're just kind of stuck on the fence, waiting for that right moment. Sometimes a simple thing to do is just get them to get pre-approved. Okay. The first step, I think of it as step by step. Well, but I'm not ready to buy yet. Not a problem. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and get pre-approved so that if by some chance the perfect moment happens, the perfect property shows up, you'll be ready. And you'll know what your budget is, and that's going to give you peace of mind. So let's say they agree to get pre-approved. Here's a thought. Why don't we go see a few homes to get an education of the market? Because see, I know they have the money. I know they're qualified. I'm not wasting my time. They're just simply hesitating. So if I can show them a few homes, I can get that ball rolling. Now, maybe they're seeing properties they like. They are pretty excited to buy, but they're still stuck. And if I can help them understand that there is a window of opportunity right now, because Mr. Buyer, I am sure you can imagine that other buyers are feeling the way you do. They're sitting on the sidelines. They're hoping for some big sign that this is the perfect time. And that big sign will not come until it's too late. So in other words, when rates drop, the buyers will come flooding back into the market, and this window of opportunity, or sellers right now are anxious for a buyer. Days on market are up. Sellers are more negotiable than they've been for years. But if we wait too long, that window of opportunity will close. But of course, it's important to use this ethically and responsibly. It's got to be genuine. It's got to be based on legitimate market factors and data. And also, it's got to be tied to their motivation. Sometimes they get really hung up on appreciation, right? That, oh, well, am I going to make 5%, 10%? Is it going to appreciate? Is it going to stay stagnant? And sometimes, especially with the buyers, the first-time buyers, reminding them the market over time, you will always do well in real estate. how much it appreciates next year or the year after, the fact that you're planning to stay there 10 or 15 years really doesn't matter, right? So, third party stories are super powerful. So, let me share a third party story with you guys, and you're welcome to borrow this one and say, hey, a friend shared this story with me. This is true, okay? So, I'm a young agent. I think I'm 20 now. And my broker, I had listed a house, a little 2-bedroom house, and it was like the last day of closing. Sellers packed, their truck is in the driveway, buyer backs out, says they, quote, lost their job. Sellers are devastated. They have to go. Fortunately, it was a job reload, so they were paying their costs and lots of things. So they said to me, I remember I had sold the house for $125,000. And they said, and this a lot of years ago, right? They said, Debbie, if you'll just buy it from us, we will sell it to you for 105 and still pay you your, at the time, 6% commission. I'm like, wow, that's like a great deal. My broker said, you better buy it as a rental. I didn't really want to. I was like super scared, but I was kind of used to doing what he told me. So I bought it. So then I got scared again. I'm trying to rent it. This school teacher, at the time, because I'm 20, I thought she was like old, but actually she was probably like 45, and she wanted to rent it, and the rent was like $750 a month. And I said to her, you know what? I don't really want to own this. How about if I sell it to you for what I paid for it, which is a bargain? She goes, no, no, don't want to buy it. Too risky. Real estate is way too risky. You're going to lose way too much money. No, no, no. Like, okay, fine. I rented it to her. So we owned that property for over 30 years. A few years ago, we exchanged it into something that made a little more sense based on our CPA advice. Guess who still lived there? She did. Guess what I sold it for? $810,000. Guess what the rent was that she was paying? $1,750 a month. And it should have been $2,000, but I didn't raise it because I felt bad, because now she actually was a very elderly woman, a retired school teacher, retirement income. She lived there for 30 years. Crazy, right? She had to go live with her son because she couldn't afford to rent anywhere else. Think about that. That's tragic. Because if she had bought that house from me when I offered it to her for $105,000, guys, in 30 years, were there some ups and downs in the market? Yeah. Was there ever a minute where it was worth less than 105? Maybe a minute, maybe in 92, maybe for a minute. Generally, no. And she could have lived there forever. Even if it never went up a penny, she could have paid it off and lived there for free. We have to believe in what we do. Guys, if you don't believe in your heart that you are guiding and helping them to their financial future, to what's good for them, for their family, then maybe it's not the right business for you, because they need your help, and the path is in the math. So do the math. You know who's so awesome at helping you with this? Your lender partner. You need to have a great lender partner who can communicate well with your buyers, who can sit with the two of you, with the 2, 3, or 4 of you, and sit down and say, okay, if you buy today at today's rate, well, yes, here's the payment. However, we can refi at no cost when the rates drop. Or let me explain how a buy down works. we could potentially negotiate for that. Let's look at your savings on your taxes that you're going to have when you own a home and you're paying interest. Like if we can help them see the math, then they can really see that it's doable. And we got to remind them they're paying to live somewhere. So the difference of where they're living, and if they're renting, it's just like throwing money in the street, that's just gone. Or they purchase and they can always refinance later. So partner with a great lender who can help you show them and help them understand that a decline in rates will spark even more buyer demand, right? Now, both of my daughters are twins, and they bought houses recently with their husbands, and it was kind of interesting how picky they were, right? First time buyers, so picky. Well, the kitchen's not remodeled. I can't even tell you guys, the first house I bought, it was so stinky and so dirty and so ugly, but it was what I could afford. It was that stepping stone to the future. So sometimes with these first time buyers, you got to remind them, grab your piece of the market. Quit waiting for the perfect house to appear. There are no bargains. You know, foreclosures don't even represent 1% of the market. And quite frankly, Mrs. Buyer, the reality is a foreclosure is it likely to be a home you like, the school district you want, the neighborhood you prefer to live in? No, it's going to be in some rough, random outer edge of the market, likely, right? Maybe not, but likely. So those bargain hunters, if you can't bring them into reality pretty quickly, quite frankly, they may not be worth your time, right? And so no one can really time the market. Just remind them, bottom line, if they want to buy or sell and can afford to hold the property for potentially, 7+ years. In some cases, it's going to be 2+ years. See, I would be a little worried if someone told me, I'm only going to be able to live in the area for a year and then I might have to sell it. Predictions are prices are going to continue to gradually increase, but I might be worried about encouraging them to buy. But someone that's going to live there 5, 7, 10, 15 years, no problem. So if you look at your types of mortgage calculators that a lot of your mortgage lenders have and can share their apps with you, those are very helpful in doing the math. And then our other goal is create that sense of urgency by just the value, the benefits, that lifestyle that they're looking to achieve. I love the question, how long are you prepared to stay in your current situation? Because that's not judgmental. I'm not setting them up. I'm asking, how long are you prepared to stay in your current situation? Well, I don't know. I don't really like the apartment that I'm living in. And the kids don't really have a yard. So not that long. Okay, then here's our next step. This is what we need to do next. But we gotta dig in to that motivation and discuss the cost and risk of waiting. So if they have no motivation, not a lot you can do. And Jennifer, I love your question. What about Catherine, we got that stat from our Goldman Sachs team. And that's actually probably a couple of months old, but I don't think it's that different, right? Certain pockets of the country may be a little bit higher, but it's pretty low. The foreclosure rate is pretty low. So Jennifer, if somebody said to me, I got to sell my house and I want to buy, but I want to wait until it's a seller's market. Here's what I would have to know. Are they buying up? Right? Because if they're buying up, then let's pretend that the price is increased by 8%. And let's pretend they have a $500,000 house. Well, then guys, we know it's going to go up by 8%, but the $1 million house they're going to buy is going to go up by 8%. Now, Jennifer says they're downsizing. So that makes sense, right? They're saying, hey, I'm downsizing. I want to get the most I can for my more expensive home. Well, then my question would be back to their motivation. Why are they doing this at all? Because sometimes downsizers, they're not as extremely motivated, right? Like they feel they've got all kinds of time on their side. It's a big and hard decision to downsize, but let's assume they are. You know, they want to go to Arizona, they want to be near their grandkids. Then my question would go back to, you know, if we look at the quality of life that you want to achieve and the enjoyment of being with your family and being near your grandkids every day, seeing them whenever you want, how long are you prepared to wait? Well, I don't know. I could wait a little bit. How will we know when the moment is right? The market timing is tricky. And the interesting thing is, even though there are some homes that are sitting on the market a bit longer, actually across the country, inventory is still relatively lean. So if your home shows well, if we price it accurately, if I drive extensive buyer demand to this property, all we need is that one right buyer to meet your price and terms. But you know what? If we're not on the market, we won't find them. I know, but I want to wait until I really think the market is hot. You know, I do really appreciate you bringing this up because honestly, I hear that every day from other future sellers. So you can imagine if other homeowners are thinking like you do, that they're going to wait to put their home in the market until that perfect moment, couldn't that mean then we have a glut of inventory? And that glut of inventory could potentially offset any positive movement in the market. See, there is no perfect time. But your home is worth a lot of money now. You know what I also used to do, guys, that was pretty effective is with people who've owned their home for a really long time and they have so much equity. I'll just give you a little example. I remember this one couple and they were kind of in this situation, right? And I said, let me ask you, can you remind me when you bought this house? What did you guys pay for it? Because I know you bought it brand spanking new. What'd you pay for it? Oh, well, we paid $35,000, 45 years ago. Wow. Wow. Incredible. Let me ask you a question. This is kind of crazy. But when you guys were writing up your paperwork, at 35,000, which I'm sure seemed like a lot then, if that salesperson had said to you, do you know what? One day you're going to be able to sell this house for $1 million. What would you guys have thought? Oh, I know, right? We would have thought it was crazy, ridiculous. I know, but here we are. Your home is worth $1 million. You made an amazing investment. Could it be worth a little more in the next year or two? Maybe, maybe not. But we know what it's worth today. Isn't it time? to take the money and run and get on to this next chapter, you have done incredibly well. Cash it in. Go live. Go play golf. Go drink margaritas on your patio and invite your grandkids over. It's time. See, sometimes we think it's going to motivate them when it's just all about the money. But remember, there's always a lot of emotion. We got to figure out what is that motivation. So Heather's asking, should we keep unmotivated buyers in the database? Sure. Why not? You know, if you have a great CRM, I know a lot of you have Brivity as your CRM, and you can put them on market reports and listing alerts and just let it run. Maybe you think, hey, once a year I'm going to check in on them, or quarterly I'm going to check in on them. Or maybe you just think, you know what? They're so unmotivated. I'm just going to let those auto plans run and let them call me. Why not? Right? So you might want to write this question down. It is a good one. How long are you prepared to stay in your current situation? And I probably would soften this with, I'm curious, or please tell me. How long are you prepared to stay in your current situation? Now, we have to be careful when we're counseling and using a little bit of tough love if they're doing things that are a little crazy, or we're asking these really intense questions. Soften your tonality. Use your question softeners. I'm curious. I was wondering. May I ask? Come totally from curiosity, not from judgment. Because if they feel like they're being judged, they'll clam up, right? Now, they tell you timelines all the time, right? Like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do it till January. And sometimes we say, okay, well, we'll call you back in January. And we call them back in January and we find out they did it 2 months ago. Well, they're liars. Maybe, right? Sometimes maybe. But I think also what happens is they give us a date that's not actually a real date. It's like long enough that they feel that buys them some space from us, so we're not going to be pushing them. So they think, oh, I'll just tell them January and I can always call them if I'm ready sooner, right? Or sometimes they just get this in their head. What's that old saying, like a bee in their bonnet? They get this in their head, they start thinking about it, they get excited, and that plan escalates and you didn't know. So I always want to figure this out. So my question around this time frame, oops, I guess I didn't put it in here, but it's in the scripts, is January. Okay, interesting. I'll make a note of that. May I ask you, what's important for you about that time frame? You see, here's the thing. You know what, Carol, I'm looking to see, is this a true condition or a procrastination? So a condition might be, well, I just lost my job. And I know the lender said, I got to start this new job and I got to be there 6 months in order to qualify. That's a condition. Or, hey, I just found out I got to have brain surgery next week. And the doctor said nothing stressful until after the end of the year. That's a condition. But if they say, well, I think the market will be better. I just feel like I'm a little busy right now. I think it'll be a better time. Okay, not a problem. I'm happy to stay in touch and be of service at that time. May I ask you one more question, though? If you actually examined the market, the data, the numbers, and you actually felt there was a true financial advantage in doing it sooner, could that be something you'd take a look at? Well, yeah, I guess if there was a financial advantage, perfect. What if we do this? Let's get together. Let's talk to a lender. Let's get the facts and the scoop on the financial market. let's take a look at what's available in your price range. If nothing more, you can get a head start. See, because that's not a condition. So you always want to be looking to create that compelling reason that articulates the unique benefits of acting quickly, but only as it aligns with their needs. So, I did put it in the deck. Here's our affirmation. So, your job as a great salesperson is to help them overcome their fear and procrastination to achieve the goal they have set for their real estate future. And guys, at the end of the day, we cannot want it more for them than they do. So if there's a true lack of motivation and desire, you may have to let them go. So we have to be able to determine their needs, their wants, their motivation. And then we have to make sure these three factors are present. Are they ready? Are they willing? And are they able? So readiness really relates to their motivation. Like, it's time. I want to get on with my life. Willing is sense of urgency. I call them, they come see properties. I ask them to meet with the lender, they meet with the lender and get pre-approved, right? Like, they're willing to take the steps and to take the action. I also like to ask this question under the category of willing. When we find a house they like and they want to offer, they're trying to decide what to offer, I ask them, what is the most you're willing to pay to hopefully prevent another buyer from taking the home away from you? I love that question. So I'm not sure if that's in the script book, so you guys might want to take a quick photo of that one. That one is a good one. When they say, well, I'm trying to decide what to offer. Well, would you be sad if you lost the home? Well, yeah, I don't want to lose it. Well, then what's the most you're willing to pay to hopefully prevent another buyer from taking it away? Now, able, that relates, of course, to their financial capability and their credit. And, always be prepared to refine their search criteria. If you have very little inventory in what they're looking for, try to get them to expand their cities, towns, or neighborhoods. Try to reduce the features. If they want 5 bedrooms, but they could live with 4, if they want a pool, but they could live without. So if there's very little inventory, then we got to open up their options by expanding areas, maybe raising price points if they are willing, taking away some of the criteria. Now, if there are too many matches, which is kind of happening now in some markets, then we want to go the opposite direction. So if there's few matches, I might say, tell me your first, second, and third choice of area. If there's too many matches, I would say, what is your number one area choice? And give me your most specific criteria. If we can't find it, then we could later expand. Because I've made the mistake of sending them too many matches and then they just get stuck, right? They get confused or they feel like they can go get a bargain on everything. So be careful with that one. Now, this was my personal rule of thumb. May not work for you, but this was my rule of thumb. Any buyer that I had been diligently working with, so I knew they were motivated, they were pre-approved, already did the consult, had their commitment to work with me, but it's now been 2 to 3 weeks and multiple showings, and they're not making offers on anything. Then it's time. That's my trigger right there at that 2 to 3 week window. I need to sit down and have a reconsultation with them. And I need to figure out what has to change to move them forward. I don't want to do the bad thing of just leaving them on listing alerts and hoping something will come up. I want to be a lot more proactive with them. And just remember, your knowledge, your expertise, the vendors, the affiliates that support you, you have a greater ability to spark action than you even realize. So if you're a little stuck this year, if you need some help, if you're trying to figure out your plan for the year ahead and you're thinking, well, maybe I need to consider coaching. We're not a high pressure company. We have no contract. If you have an interest in finding out what that looks like and how we would help you, you just scan that QR code or you can go to the link below, and my team, Gary or Ron, will speak with you, get you scheduled and prepared to talk to me. I want this to be a great rest of the year for you. And this is really a time to skill up. It's also a time to go back to those leads and decide, who do I need to have another heart to heart, figure out the math, figure out the motivation, and decide, are they the front burner for me or are they the back burner on my auto plans? Julie, if the link, you said the link is not working, that's weird. Feel free to email me direct, Julie. It's easy, Debbie at forwardcoaching.com. So just feel free, if you guys need me, and for some reason the QR code, I'll just put it in the chat for you. I cannot talk and chew gum at the same time, whereas I don't usually use this computer. Oh my gosh, I can't even find the @ sign. How weird. Oh, there it is. It's one of those days, guys. So let me do that again at forward. It would help to have my glasses too, coaching.com. Okay, there you go. So if the link isn't working or the QR code, you can always email me direct, and also feel free to email me if you have a question. I just want to go back up. I saw one question. Let me see if I can grab that one. What about buyers who want to make sure they see all their options and don't miss out on any inventory? Do we tell them no? It's so specific to the buyer, but that reminds me, Michelle, of a question that I used to ask buyers on that first consultation. I would say, I'm curious, how many homes do you feel you'll need to see in order to make a decision? Because if someone said to me, oh, at least 100, and I want to look at these 10 different neighborhoods, I'm like, uh-oh, is this a buyer I want to work with? But the people just said, oh, I don't, until I find the right one. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So probably what I would do is I would look out with them, Michelle, and say, guys, you seem to be stuck. You have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. We need to sit down and really look at the market in general. We should examine where your first priorities are to be. We need to really refine that criteria, because why would we look at homes and areas that are actually not something you would truly consider? So that might be somebody I would try to refine that criteria, just so you're not running all over the place, right? But I'd have to know a little bit more about them. All right, guys. Hey, have an awesome rest of your week. Remember, there is gold in your database. You just need to go talk to those people and get them off the fence. And you know what? They're gonna love you for it. They're gonna look back and they're gonna be so grateful that you got them involved in their next real estate investment. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.